Now, this next artist asked me not to read this, but god damn it, I'm gonna read it anyway. Because I wrote it, and it's true. I fucking love this band. This is the best band ever, period. Ghostemane is a trap metal artist who began in southern Florida in the early 2010s. His subject matter focuses heavily on the occult, magic, Aleister Crowley, and other macabre, as well as historical topics that we all grew up with. Ghostemane was born Eric Whitney on April 15, 1991 in the city of Lake Worth, Florida. From a young age, he had shown great interest in the arts, learning to play guitar and joining in with several local hardcore punk and metal bands. It was during this time, with either the band Seven Serpents or Nemesis, the blossoming artist would be introduced to the Memphis-style horrorcore rap, an introduction that would start an intense infatuation in the years to come. Now, I've personally attempted to try and find some music from either of these bands, and there's honestly like a plethora of artists named Nemesis, and none of them really seem to be his band, but it might be out there. I haven't been able to find it. There was a Seven Serpents that I found on Spotify, and they're from Florida, so I was thinking it might be them, but I don't know for sure. So if you're interested in that, or if anybody knows if we can find some of that music, let me know for sure, man, because I'd like to see that. Though none of these bands ever achieved any mainstream success, they laid the foundation of what was to come in the future. Unfortunately, in the midst of the burgeoning music springing forth from our young prodigy, tragedy struck and Eric's father passed away when he was just 17. This tragedy would become a recurring talking point in several songs from the future Ghostemane in years to come. With many songs lamenting the nature of life and death, Ghostemane has discussed the matter in a handful of interviews. He has discussed his father's influence on his interests in the occult, as well as his father's respect for spirituality, as well as disdain for organized religion, a sentiment that he claims he still carries to this day. It was because of his father that Ghostemane played on the football team all throughout high school. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but picturing Ghostemane done up in his black and white hair, full makeup, and stage attire, while attempting to throw a football, is kind of a comical scene if you can picture it. Now, in 2019, he started releasing music under the moniker Ill Biz. I have managed to find a handful of these songs. I'll put some of them in the bio if you want to check them out. There's plenty of them floating around if you do a couple quick searches. They show us a much younger, much less tattooed Ghostemane, exploring and not yet having mastered what would become a $1 million idea for him. Ghostemane as we know him, however, came to be in October of 2014 with the release of a single titled Technicolor, which largely fell on deaf ears, though it managed to get a few thousand hits on SoundCloud. It is actually still available on Spotify and other streaming services today, so if you want to check that out, just go on his Spotify and scroll down to the bottom and you'll find Technicolor. It's not bad. It's definitely different though. If you look at what he sounds like today versus what he sounded like then, it's a pretty stark contrast. It's pretty cool to watch him grow, because I'm glad he hasn't deleted anything. A lot of artists try and delete some of their early stuff. I know I've deleted a lot of my early stuff, but he's left a lot of it out, except for the Ill Biz stuff, but a lot of his early stuff is still up. Yeah. Then in 2015, our young hero decided to make a change in his life in order to further his not quite so fruitful yet career. So he moved to Los Angeles, where everyone seems to go. He joined up with the Schema Posse, along with a handful of others such as Lil Peep, JGRXXN, Cold Blooded, and Craig Zen. While collaborating with Schema Posse, Ghostemane started rapidly releasing tracks, including another single titled Chrono, as well as 2 full-length LPs titled Ooga Booga and For the Aspiring Occultist. Now, strangely enough, when I first discovered, I was late to the Ghostemane party. I probably found him in like 2019 after most people already knew him. And I don't know why, but I decided to listen to his early stuff first, so I started listening to For the Aspiring Occultist on my way to work. And there's some pretty good songs on there still. The one with Suicideboys was really good. Seppuku is really good. Ooga Booga on one hand featured collaborations with Wavy Jones and So Six, while For the Aspiring Occultist featured collabs with now legendary performers Suicideboys, Ramirez, Craig Zen, JGRXXN, Sorta Human, and Mr. Cisco. While these albums received a moderate amount of success in the underground scene, mostly on SoundCloud, it was nothing compared to what was to come. Now on to 2016, Ghostemane released 3 full-length albums, Rituals, Blockage, and Plagues, as well as 2 singles, Don't Judge a Corpse by Its Toe Tag, and the now legendary I Wake Up in the Morning Feeling Like I'm Not Me. John D. Yep, John D. I've thought about this a lot as a musician myself, and it really makes a lot of sense to me. That's the wrong spot. Now, I've thought about this a lot as a musician myself. The 3 albums he did in 2016, Rituals, Blockage, and Plagues. And there was only really one big song on all 3 albums, which was Venom off of Black Mage. It's still one of his most popular songs, and despite releasing so much music that year, the average listener only ever really listens to 2 tracks, Venom and John D. This leads me to believe that it was a brilliant move on his part, releasing up so much music all at once, not knowing what will end up sticking and becoming successful, but those 2 tracks are responsible for a massive boost in his career moving forward. Especially as like an underground artist, you don't have the backing of a major label for them to tell you what songs are going to be a hit and what songs are going to flop. I mean, we can kind of tell, you can kind of tell, I think, but sometimes you'll make a song and you'll think it's going to be great and it just doesn't do anything. So, especially when you're starting out, you should just keep releasing things until you find something that works. Now, about halfway through the year, in April of 2016, Ghostemane decided to split ways with Schema Posse in order to gain more musical autonomy and become more experimental with his art. And starting in 2017, he would begin seeing much more widespread success. With the now gold-certified collaboration with fellow Florida native Pouya, 1,000 Rounds, that song, combined with the past successes of Venom and John D, would propel Ghostemane to the top of the underground circuit practically overnight. That year would also see a large number of singles being released, including Kali Yuga, Hades, Kabbalion, before ending the year with the much-anticipated release of Hexada. Hexada would prove to be yet another success, with hits such as Mercury Retrograde, Squeeze, and the title track, Hexada. Mercury Retrograde is still his #1 stream song on Spotify 6 years after the fact, with 100 million more streams than any of the other songs even close to it. Yeah, I mean, Fed Up is his #1 song and has been for a while, but if you go look at it, Fed Up's at like 150 million, and Mercury Retrograde is at 250 million streams. With this release, we saw a shift away from any sort of traditional hip-hop with a much more distinct and dark blend of trap, metal, punk, and industrial gothic-themed music. He finished the year off with the viral music video for Mercury Retrograde, which brought forth a combination of old-time cartoons put to the soundtrack of chaotic decadence. While 2017 brought us countless classic songs, 2018 would prove to be the biggest year yet for Ghostemane, with the announcement of his 7th studio album, Noise, or N-O-I-S-E, or N-O-I-S-E, kind of a mouthful, featuring instant classics such as Nile, Bonesaw, Trenchcoat, and Gattaca. Noise differed from his past releases, leaning away from the hip-hop he had come up doing and embracing the industrial goth rock sound that had influenced adolescents around the world. Noise wasn't the only thing he released during the year 2018. Like most other years, we also saw the release of several singles and a handful of EPs. The singles include Boomerang, featuring Don Krez, Stick It Out, which was another single collaborating with fellow Florida artist Pouya, fellow Florida artist. That's kind of a mouthful. Say that 3 times fast. Fellow Florida artist, fellow Florida. I can't do it. He also released a single called Blood Oceans, How Many, with prominent Russian artist by the name of Pharaoh. The song did surprisingly well in America despite half the track being in Russian. I just want to point out that if you haven't given Blood Oceans a chance, definitely do it. That song thumps so hard in the car with the volume up, the bass will vibrate your butt plug loose if you're not careful. The year also brought us the single Dread, which featured a collaboration from legendary punk icon Travis Barker playing the drums for the track on the music video, which is also pretty cool. That was like the year that Travis Barker had his hand in everything. Travis Barker's insane. You wouldn't think a drummer like that would be able to just go off and do as much as he has. He's got to be the most famous drummer of all time that I can think of. Anyway, the only EP from 2018 is Dahlia 1, which was a collaboration with Getter featuring 3 separate tracks showcasing the pair's talent. 2019 saw far fewer releases than his fan base had grown accustomed to. We saw the release of 3 EPs with 3 to 4 tracks each: Fear Network, Opium, and Human Error. Human Era was a collaboration with the DJ Parvo, who is also Ghostemane's DJ/record spinner for his live performances still to this day in 2023. I assume we saw less of Ghostemane in 2019 because Ghostemane also began a relationship with YouTuber and fellow musician Hi, I'm Poppy. The two met at Reading Festival in Reading, UK on August 24th, 2019, and shortly after began posting pictures with one another on their respective social media pages during the course of the relationship. They worked together on several projects. Poppy directed the music videos for Lazaretto and Hydrochloride, as well as worked as the creative director for the highly anticipated Fed Up music video, which released in 2021. They spent about a year doing interviews and planning their engagement and wedding and whatnot before calling it off somewhere around November 27th of 2021. In February of 2020, Ghostemane released a visual trailer for the album titled Anti-Icon. The visual trailer featured an NSFW, not safe for work, scene of corpses committing lewd acts with one another and announced the highly anticipated release of Anti-Icon 2 years after the release of Noise. The lead singles, Lazaretto and AI, were released within 1 month of each other at the end of the summer. It was around this time when Ghostemane was featured on the front page of Kerrang! Magazine with a full-length article written about him, applauding his innovation and genius. I quote, Ghostemane's pitch black 8th album, Anti-Icon, was the product of the most turbulent time of his life, yet he insists it is the ultimate cathartic realization of twisted vision. The article goes on to applaud Ghostemane as a trailblazer and pioneer for the burgeoning trap metal genre, describing his daunting character and love for mysticism as he's portrayed in a plethora of songs. It's like the third time they've used plethora. That's a fun word, plethora. Ghostemane goes on to describe his feelings on Anti-Icon and explains his reasoning for choosing such a title. Quote, I feel like icon is one of those terms that just gets thrown around in an internet age, he replied. There are no prerequisites anymore. To me, an icon is someone like Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson, or RuPaul. Hey, Marilyn Manson. They're people you'll recognize from 10 miles away. You know what they look like. You know their voice. You can make an action figure out of them. Nowadays, it feels like the label is thrown on every random YouTuber, TikToker, and internet personality. If that's an icon, it's not what I want to be. There's an icon that'll never be me. Unfortunately for Ghostemane, however, that seems to be exactly what he's become in 2023. Anti-Icon released to mainstream success, rocketing his streaming numbers to double and triple what they once were. He now sits between 5 and 6 million monthly listeners on Spotify, which is not an easy feat to achieve in today's market. People have their interests and their attention spans are about that of a fly, so if you're not releasing constantly, then you got something special to stay on top that long. But Ghostemane is not Eric Whitney's only project. In 2019, he also released a black metal EP titled Evil Beneath a Veil of Justice under the name Beta Meinhof, with a follow-up self-titled EP, Beta Meinhof, in 2020 as well. While black metal isn't among the most popular of genres and never really has been, even with its limited fan base, the EP seemed to mostly fall on deaf ears, so go check them out if you're into black metal. They're pretty good. And it was about this time, shortly after breaking up with Poppy, that Ghostemane entered into a relationship with Sky Boyson, aka Skyfires. After just a year of courting one another, they announced an engagement to be wed, and in July of 2022, they announced the pregnancy of the couple's first child, a baby girl, who was actually born a couple weeks ago. Couldn't find her name. I don't think they released that, which is fine, because who needs to know somebody else's child's name, especially if you don't know them. Anyway, yeah, he's a proud father now, proud papa. As of 2023, it has been nearly 3 years since his last big release. Perhaps he's taken time off to spend with his new family, which of course is well deserved. But hopefully we will be blessed from the rock gods with a new Ghostemane album that we can play on repeat until our ears bleed. I don't know. I think y'all should go check out Ghostemane. If you haven't, I'm sure if anybody's actually watching this, you probably all listen to Ghostemane. Ghostemane's my number one artist right now, and he has been for the last 3 years, so I wanted to do a video about him just to,